Welcome back. You are tuning in to Traders Nation. Once again, we have an original broadcast interview, this time with Steve Forbes, President and CEO of Forbes Inc., Editor-in-Chief of Forbes Magazine, and Republican candidate for president in 1996 and 2000. Steve, welcome to Traders Nation. How are you today?
Good to be with you, Kurt. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic, Steve. Steve, listen, we've got the book here, Flat Tax Revolution, using a postcard to abolish the IRS. Why is today's federal tax code a nightmare on Main Street?
Well, it certainly is. It's the biggest source of corruption in Washington. As I point out in the book, Flat Tax Revolution, the Gettysburg Address was 268 words. Our Declaration of Independence, 1,300 words. Constitution, 5,000 words. Bible, 773,000 words. Federal Income Tax Code, and all of those attendant rules and regulations, 9 million words and rising.
Oh, Steve, holy smokes. I mean, that's huge. And in comparison, why is it so big?
Because every special interest, every lobby tries to put something in there to help themselves out. Just a little over a year ago, for example, they passed a tax bill which was subtitled No Lobbyists Left Behind, and they had a tax credit for manufacturers. And one of the footnotes slipped in was by Starbucks, that defined manufacturing as including the crushing of coffee beans. So Starbucks is now a manufacturer like U.S. Steel.
Interesting. Okay, all right. So no lobbyists left behind. I mean, isn't that the root, one of the roots of the problems that we have in our tax code is lobbyists?
Well, the whole thing. And Congress sells the favors, so it just becomes more and more of a monster.
Yeah.
And as a result, we're paying more. The code is full of inequities, dishonesties.
Yeah.
And if we had the flat tax, half the lobbyists in Washington would have to find honest work.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that, I mean, we're just outright saying that, you know, Congress is for sale. Isn't that the case?
Hey, well, they call it access or whatever. But
Right, right. Call it what you will. It's for sale. Right? All right. So why does taxes breed corruption?
Well, because it's a huge source of power. Being able to change the tax code, you can help yourself or protect yourself. That's why people in Congress love these fights between industries, because they get to get contributions from both. If you're a member of a tax writing committee in the House and the Senate, you are set for life. You say, I want a reception. Every lobbyist comes with a check in hand.
Oh, unbelievable. All right. So let's talk about, how did the tax beast really start? Way back when?
Well, the beast started back in 1913 when they enacted the Federal Income Tax Code. At the time, the highest rate was 7% on the income equivalent today of about $10 or $15 million. But 4 years later, with World War I, the rates were up to 77%, and we've been off to the races ever since. They've been bringing rates down in recent years, thanks to Ronald Reagan. Yeah. But the code just gets bigger and bigger, fatter and fatter, and more incomprehensible.
Right.
One of the things I cite in the book is the fact that a few years ago, Money Magazine did a survey. They took a hypothetical family's finances, gave those numbers to 45 different tax preparers, experts in the field, and got back 45 different returns, 45 different estimates of that family's tax liability. Even the 45 experts couldn't agree on what that family actually owed the federal government.
Wow, that's quite a discrepancy. I mean, that's a real bad problem. Yeah, Steve, how come, all right, so how does your flat tax system work? I mean, it's different from like a national flat tax, isn't it?
Well, what it does is take the whole federal income tax code, all 9 million hideous words, throw it in the dumpster once and for all. I was going to say throw it in the ocean, but that would probably be pollution.
That's correct.
So we'll have to incinerate it one way or the other.
Sure.
And replace it with a single rate, 17%, on incomes above your deductions for adults and for children. For example, a family of 4, mom, dad, 2 kids, your first $46,000 would be free of federal income tax. Then above the $46,000, you'd only pay 17 cents on the dollar, 17%. So there's no tax on savings. There's also no death taxes. I believe you should be allowed to leave the world unmolested by the IRS.
Right.
Or as our founders would say, no taxation without respiration.
Right. Interesting. All right. So above $46,000, you pay 17%. Now, is that on a national? You do it once a year, or
once a year? You still have to have withholding. If you go above the threshold because people don't set aside money, and we don't want, realistically, people are going to not want to do away with withholding, although I'd like to see it go away. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And so that would be on the national level, and I figure if we can slay the beast on the national level, then we can start getting reform on the local level. But we don't realize as a people how, we've been numbed to all the taxes we pay. You get up in the morning, you turn on the lights, you got electricity taxes, you turn on the water taxes. You go to the kitchen, have a muffin or a cup of tea or coffee. You got sales taxes. You go to work, gasoline taxes, registration fees, license fees, tolls. You get to work, then you have your federal income tax, state income tax, Medicare tax, Social Security tax. Go home, you buy something, you buy a product, there are taxes embedded in that. Companies don't pay taxes. They get it from B&M. And then when you get home, you go through the mail and you got a notice for property taxes. Going up again.
See,
pet, time to renew Rover's license. Everything you do, they tax you on.
It's unbelievable. I mean, you're absolutely right. There's taxes everywhere. Now, Americans, or really geopolitically, let's speak, where there's a certain percentage where there really is a revolution. I think it's 30% or 35, maybe even 40%, where there's a certain pain where civilians really just have had enough. The 17%, I think, is very reasonable, and far from that.
Yeah, no, it's very reasonable, and it's very fair, and it's very open. You make it, you pay it.
Yeah, you make it, you pay it. Now, this is different from the national tax system, which, by the way, is if you spend a little money, you pay a tax as you go throughout the year. Is that correct?
Yeah, they have a proposal for a national sales tax, which would be at a rate of 30%, would replace the income tax and the payroll tax.
Right.
And I think the problem with that is, one, the rate is very high, but also putting a tax on services. It's one thing if you have a product, you can physically keep track of it with high technology.
Right.
But if a kid comes and cuts your lawn, or somebody provides some advice to you, who's going to pay that tax, 30%?
Right.
It's going to be cash.
Right. And here's the other thing, too. It would have a detrimental effect on high-priced tagged items. For instance, housing. I think it would probably put a stop to housing, don't you feel?
Well, new house with a 30% tax, I think.
Can you imagine? Oh, it'd be putting the brakes on a lot of things like that. Yeah. All right. Unbelievable. All right. So let's talk about, illegal immigration really has been a hot topic. How would the flat tax system that you propose, would we actually start seeing some type of income tax or flat tax from illegal immigration? Is there some type of measure that's built into that?
Well, not directly, but I think the very simplicity of the flat tax means that you can't hide from the tax, and so I think we'd have much more collections, both from citizens and residents, and from illegals as well.
Right.
Very simplicity makes enforcement infinitely easier.
Right. All right. Other nations already are succeeding from the flat tax and have been doing for many, many years. Can you give us some examples of those nations?
Well, Hong Kong has had a variation of it for 60 years very successfully.
Yeah.
About 10 countries in Eastern and Central Europe. Russia did it several years ago. Within 4 years, they more than doubled their revenue.
Yeah.
Ukraine has done it. Romania, Slovakia, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia. Greece is considering it. Spain's considering it. So it's getting growing support. And wherever it's been tried, it works. As the prime minister of a small country called Estonia said, he said, once you try it, you never want to go back.
Right. I mean, it's good for the government, and it's good for the citizens, too, overall. That's what it sounds like to me.
Because with a more vibrant economy, guess what? You get more revenue.
Right. All right. So let's talk about, some people say the flat tax will drain the Treasury, and you say they're wrong. How's that?
Well, when you have a more vibrant economy, you have more efficient collection, fair collection.
Yeah.
Guess what? Revenues go up in the real world, and that's been the experience of other countries.
Yeah. It's just as simple as that, isn't it, Steve? All right.
It's amazing. Sometimes simple principles are very basic, and they work.
And they work. All right. Steve, last question. Are we going to see you in 2008? You going to run?
I'm going to be not a candidate, but an agitator. The other candidates.
Nice. I like it, Steve. All right. Steve Forbes with us today. We're talking about flat tax revolution. Of course, Steve is President and CEO of Forbes and Corp, Editor-in-Chief of Forbes magazine, Republican candidate for 96 and 2000. Steve, Thanks for being on Traders Nation Day. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
You're more than welcome. All right, there you have it. Best place to get Steve Forbes, Flat Tax Revolution. Head on over to Barnes & Noble, really all your majors. I seriously doubt that you're going to find the Flat Tax Revolution at the IRS bookstore, all right? But you can find it everywhere else. I'm sure of it.
This concludes our audio presentation. TradersNation.com complies with all the rules governed by the SEC. An inherent conflict may exist, and listeners are encouraged to review TradersNation.com's disclaimer on the webpage you found this audio program on, or by clicking on the disclaimer URL located at the bottom of any TradersNation.com's webpage.